Ladies and gentlemen of Congress, thank you for giving me the opportunity to let my voice be heard on such a grand scale on a subject that has greatly affected me in how I perceive the issue of abortion as a college student. 1973, 24 years ago before I was born, and 42 years ago. One of the most controversial U.S. Supreme Court rulings was read in Roe v. Wade. The effect that this ruling has had, giving women the right to choose to have an abortion, is profound still to this day. The fact that this ruling still resonates with our nation is not the problem. Something as controversial as abortion should cause a stir in our emotions. The problem lies in the lack of progression we have made in this 42-year span since the ruling was read. Many countries do not have the luxury of debating on political issues or even disagreeing with fellow citizens. In some countries, the penalties are even higher for publicly disagreeing with a man or woman of political leadership. This clear advantage, this freedom we have, is a staple of our country. It is what makes America so much different than many other countries around the world. But the downfall to this pleasant freedom is that after years, decades, or even centuries of debate on well-known controversies, our nation's politics, we make no legitimate progress. There comes a point when the fuel to the fire has to be suppressed and negotiation and compromise becomes the desired end. A middle ground has to be reached. The middle ground of compromise does not indicate, though, a cease to disagreement or a cease to the debate on the issue. The reason we have multiple perspectives on many of the important issues of our country is rightly because we are free to form different beliefs, views, attitudes, opinions, and values. And moreover, this makes finding middle ground much more difficult. Those beliefs you hold so dear to you that define your political career essentially have to be released in order to compromise. Even when this stage of compromise is done, debate still occurs and will continue to occur. But the key and bright side to this is that you have made the first step in progression. Stagnation of old beliefs will no longer weigh down the nation and its people. Civil rights is a great example of this. The opinions of both of the dominant perspectives were greatly different, with advocates of integration and advocates of segregation on both sides. The middle ground, though, came through the law. Brown versus Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Swan versus Charlotte Mecklenburg Board of Education. The fight or debate was not over. As we can see today, many systematic injustices are still overrepresented through minorities. But this middle ground of separate is inherently unequal progressed our nation. In regards to abortion, this same outline of thinking can lead to the same progression. Civil rights and abortion are somewhat analogous cases. Abortion inhabits two polarizing perspectives, pro-life and pro-choice. The chief difference is how the middle ground was approached in civil rights, and my proposition is that civil rights clearly had one perspective that was not only legitimate, but based on truth. Integration and the notion of separate is inherently unequal are basic human rights and citizen truths. Abortion, however, has no right way that is grounded in truth. The middle ground will not come from one or the other, but summons key aspects of both and brings them together into the moderate perspective, or the middle ground. Many pro-choice advocates assert that women should have the right to choose, while many pro-life advocates believe each baby has a right to life. Each side's rhetoric has merit and truth. A woman's body is her body, so why should she not choose what she does with it. The Supreme Court used the Constitution to further this assertion legally. On the other hand, each baby or any human life has a right to live. Simply think of our law as justification of this principle. Taking away someone's life is illegal. This is what made many pro-life advocates use to further their beliefs. Each side has legitimate claims that are supported in human rights, our Constitution, and our law. As someone who thinks of myself as rational and logical, I can plainly see the merit in both of these claims, the basis of these claims, and how are they supported. Just as the rest of this country, who fall on either side of the spectrum, believe. Ask a pro-choice supporter if their beliefs are logical and legitimate, and do the same for a pro-life supporter. Bring this together in the political arena here in Congress, where legislation is proposed and developed in support for either perspective each day, and you have a stalemate, or, as I like to say, a never-ending tug of war. Each side continues to push legislation through the process. Many never make it to the end to become law, but every now and then they do, either favoring pro-choice or pro-life. And to the successful perspective, this is what they regard as progress, until the opposing side gets a leg up in legislation or the law. Each side continues to pull, and they exert a great amount of energy doing it. But no real progress has been accomplished. This is where the middle fits nicely. Where each side of the argument can't satisfy everyone, the moderate perspective has the rhetoric to begin that process of progress and satisfaction. Grounded in the basis of case-by-case analysis, this perspective does what the other two can't. Pro-choice and pro-life are both constricting perspectives. What I mean is, each case, each situation, each woman that contemplates abortion, under either perspective, is advised to do it or to keep the baby. This seems like a simple decision, but the flaw is that it does not take into account that each woman's story, situation, and circumstance are different and unique. The many different circumstances that can go into someone contemplating whether to proceed with abortion or not are unthinkable. Why should we metaphorically try to stretch a tightly constricting pro-choice or pro-life perspective over the vast and broad question of abortion? Instead of this natural uniqueness of each situation should be met with the same uniqueness for a perspective. A perspective that takes everything into account and helps a woman to the best available and smart decision based on her unique case. More than ever, do we need the moderate perspective. As we continue to dwell in stagnation, we simultaneously drive a wedge of hatred and division between the supporters of either perspective of abortion. Last week, a man opened fire at Planned Parenthood in Colorado, an unfortunate but prevalent tragedy we have become accustomed to in our nation, with the murders of abortion doctors or similar events as the recent one. On the other side, we have pro-choice advocates marching in protest of a specific person because of their beliefs. Each side at the point of hatred for the other, whose beliefs do not match their own. How is this productive to our nation and its people? When a decision is made, judgment should not be the first reaction, even if your own actions in that situation would have been different. The moderate perspective brings both perspectives together to decide rationally what is the best decision for this woman, her baby, and anyone else affected. Yes, people will still be in opposition to some of the decisions that may be made, But that's where education comes in and your part as political leaders. This is why I'm here today, to speak to you all. Your duty should be to help people understand why we no longer need two opposing sides, but one perspective that encompasses both and makes a decision with the affected party that takes everything into account about their unique situation. Will it be easy? It definitely will not be. Will it be a smooth transition? Absolutely not. But does it have the potential to serve as the beginning of our progression past our 42-year-old tug of war match between pro-choice and pro-life? Yes, an emphatic yes. The civil rights movement, after many key advancements, still continues to struggle and runs into obstacles every single day. But it started with that middle ground that allowed progression to begin. This can be the beginning of a post-controversial abortion nation. Thank you.